Wait. So let me get this straight. You sent a man to suffer the cruel effects of slavery basically by having him take your place in the trap they had set for you, and they called him Jesus Christ.
No, it's more complex than that. I came and broke off a piece of myself basically, placed that piece inside the womb of a barren woman whose ovaries had been scorched with boiling water, healing her so that the light of me that I placed into her womb through her stomach would spark the seed of life within her, creating a lesser version of myself that became a half-mortal half-divine being, which was technically my son, in principle, and created much like Adam was, for God made man in the image of himself. All this I did to escape the trap they had set to imprison me outside of existence, in their attempt to banish me from my own creation and buried under the name and legend as chaos to hide their sinful plan, which in all actuality hid the fact that this plan involved covering their interference into breaking the perfectly set interwoven threads of reality and blaming me for its error and then burying me in the tangled mesh. This forced me to devise a plan which involved my incarnation into mortal flesh to cast off the trap and replacing myself with the one I called Jesus, then dying in that mortal life to transition completely, freeing myself from its hold through the transcendence of life into death and into the spiritual form, where I then proceeded to return to my original body from which it all began, that still laid on a comatose state due to an aneurysm. All made possible by me, right now, in this moment as I am writing this and making this video. At the same time I am projecting out of body and across time to the point of Jesus' last breath, so that I can facilitate the transition of all this, but appearing as a luminous light reaching down from the skies to make this all happen. To the victors goes the spoils. Well, this is my victory over death and their sinister plans. Yes, I know that my enemies will use this information to orchestrate their plans to cast their entitlement of Lucifer upon me to try and save themselves from defeat. I know this because that is what this information can do in the hands of ignorant people. Just as it was meant to happen, which brings us full circle to how I became who I am. Sometimes we must fall in order to learn how to pick ourselves back up. So I allowed myself to fall to their schemes in order for me to become who I was meant to be.
Satan is a fallen angel who rebelled against God and was cast out of heaven. He is portrayed as the embodiment of evil. The father of lies and the accuser of God's people. The Bible tells us that Satan's ultimate goal is to oppose and undermine God's will, and to lead people away from the truth. Despite Satan's rebellion and his ongoing efforts to lead people astray, some might wonder why God does not forgive him. After all, isn't God a God of love and forgiveness? While it is true that God is a God of love and forgiveness, the Bible also teaches that there are consequences for our actions. In the case of Satan, his rebellion against God was a deliberate and willful act of disobedience. He chose to oppose God's will and to set himself up as an enemy of God. In the book of Revelation, Satan is referred to as the great dragon who was thrown down to the earth. This suggests that Satan's rebellion was a final and irrevocable act, and that there is no possibility of repentance or forgiveness for him. Furthermore, the Bible teaches that God is perfectly just and holy. He cannot overlook sin or ignore the consequences of disobedience.
It's more like Satan was a part of a culture whose leaders had oppressed God's chosen people, and so they condemned all of them to suffer these accusations. Whether or not they knew he was the creator is only a portion of the problem. For they have severely defamated my character, with intentions of placing themselves on some throne to rule over all. Once again, what makes you people think that you know any better than even myself, enough to defame my name and claim yourselves worthy of taking what I have created for yourselves? And I ask that on behalf of the issue with the ark, with my son, to the order of the caliphates and directed at the very center of your reason behind your holy wars. And then they wonder why none can hear my voice because they say their mortal body is too frail, or maybe because what I write and say can become a force that threatens your very life by writing the fate of your life's conclusion by what I say. They think they work against me, but it is by my design that benefits me ultimately, and they shall meet their demise once they're finished and realize as that death comes to take their lives. In that moment, it was all exactly as I intended, and they were but pawns chasing a dream that I led them to desire.
As the Apostle Paul wrote in his letter to the Romans, "For the wages of sin is death." This means that there is a price to be paid for our rebellion against God. In the case of Satan, his rebellion was so egregious that he was cast out of heaven and condemned to eternal punishment. This is a sobering reminder of the seriousness of sin and the importance of obedience to God's will. In conclusion, while God is a God of love and forgiveness, there are consequences for our actions, and some sins are so heinous that they cannot be forgiven. The rebellion of Satan against God was a deliberate and willful act of disobedience, and as a result, he was cast out of heaven and condemned to eternal punishment. This serves as a warning to us all to be obedient to God's will and to avoid the path of rebellion and disobedience.
Council of Nicaea. According to historical accounts, this event transpired around 350 AD. However, my recollections paint a different picture. There's a plethora of inaccuracies in the current narrative of this gathering. For instance, it's reported that over 1,800 priests from across the Roman Empire were summoned to this council. This, I find hard to believe. Even in 350 AD, our society was not sufficiently developed to accommodate the logistical demands of such a massive congregation traveling great distances. The very idea seems implausible. Numerous priests would have perished during the journey, falling prey to enemies, predators, natural disasters, or disease. The perilous journeys undertaken by Europeans to reach America during the colonial era, with the many hardships experienced aboard Columbus's ships, offer an apt comparison. Deaths from diseases like scurvy and starvation were common, leaving many survivors scarred for life. Furthermore, this period was marked by intense Christian persecution by the Roman Empire. I realize my previous statements were misleading, and for that, I apologize. Upon further research, I've discovered that the council I recall was not the Council of Nicaea. Instead, it was the Council of the Sanhedrin, a committee of Hebrew elders from the tribes of Judah who convened to decide on the scriptures' texts. The confusion arose as my search for this memory continuously referred back to the Nicene Council. Let's delve into my recollections of the Sanhedrin Council, some of which I've mentioned in a parody sketch in one of my earlier videos. The Sanhedrin was a meeting of the highest priests from the 12 tribes, probably about 50 individuals. They congregated in a locality known as Meshash or Micah, or something similar. The meeting place was not particularly large, roughly the size of a spacious barn or stable. 2 rows of elevated seats overlooked a central arena, akin to an indoor boxing ring, with the seats situated above the ring. The council was more of a contentious debate, concluding one day and resuming the next. The council aimed to decide which doctrines and texts should be included in their collective book, representing all the tribes' accounts of the God of Abraham and Moses, later known as Jehovah. This council met either before or after Jesus' death. I believe it was before, as I don't recall any discussions involving Jesus himself. It was more about the authors and their moral standing, and if their lives reflected Abraham's code, thereby authenticating their accounts. Now, let's look at the Nicene articles that were discussed, keeping in mind that they were deliberating on matters that they had no way of fully comprehending. I am Here, in this era, I am the creator of existence and I've not authorized anyone to reveal any information relating to creation to the Romans or anyone else. So if anyone has, it's been without my consent and I consider it a betrayal. The Nicene Council concluded that Jesus Christ, being begotten, was not made. Despite Arius's argument that Jesus Christ was created out of nothing or something else, the Council affirmed that he was begotten out of the Father's essence. The debate was not about his substance but out of what substance he was generated. The term homoousion was added only because Emperor Constantine insisted on its inclusion. Now, considering the inaccuracies in the Nicene Creed, how should I address the millions of Christians who have lived, dedicated their lives, died for, and fought for a belief based on a misconception? Do I rectify this by revealing the truth, or do I do what a creator must for his creation and condemn those who have caused so much suffering for their greed and shame? Considering it was the God of the Hebrews who came to me and gave me this name that he has set as a curse upon me so that he could interfere with my plans and creation of existence, as I've shown the capacity of my ability to have done so in these videos. This God that the Romans try to lay claim to with this elaborate fictional record that describes the Holy Roman Council of Christianity as an advanced delegation of democratic councilmen comprised of priests from around the world who discuss the kingdom of God as if they have any idea as to what is or how it functions, totally overlooking the term, mankind was not created with the capacity to understand the things which go on in heaven. And they sat there, the murderers and conspirators who worked towards and condemned my son to death, deliberating over what happens within or with what I create, as if they own and claim the rights to it. Then they proceed to hammer out this book based on their concepts of what they think they know or what they want the world to believe when it comes to me and what I make. I'm glad I'm in this semi-mortal form for this, so I can ask, with the truest of sincerity with every word, who in the fuck do they think they are? What the fuck kind of audacity do these morons have that makes them believe themselves to be anywhere capable of making any such claim to when it comes to, of all the different gods from all the many cultures around the world? They claim such things over my creation. They can't even run a country on their own, with just one individual responsible for it all, without it falling apart in a blaze of chaos. What makes them think that they can lay a claim and be the one behind the creation of the universe, this world, life itself throughout all that I have created, including this world and every bug, beast, and fish on it? What makes them think they are even capable of managing a successful attempt to such a thing? Not to mention a kingdom that was so lacking in the understanding of the complex diversities beyond even the science's grasp of the universe today, that their scholars are recorded to have been shagging their own students in ways reminiscent of Sodom and Gomorrah descriptions. If he turned a whole 2 cities to dust for those kinds of behaviors, then what makes them think he'll take kindly to their city? Ahem, excuse me, I just had to get that off my chest. So. And just for your information, it wasn't so much the fornication that upset me, it was them trying to lure the angels I sent to Sodom and Gomorrah with things like sexual pleasures, feasts and banquets, praises and honors and all manner of distractions to lure them from their purpose, and because they knew they were angels sent to observe them. Man's earliest attempt at what has become a plague to society today, political corruption and bribery. Now what am I supposed to do with all these Christians who have lived, dedicated their lives, died for and fought thousands of years having faith in such a misconception that they were never meant or needed to know about? Do I go back and tell them this lie and inspire their writings on this subject for the sake of all those who have come to believe this false story built by the ambitions of those who call themselves my ministers but are serpents who live and dwell among me, warping my works and words to their own agenda? Or do I do what a creator must for the sake of his creation and cast you serpents who have brought such suffering and grief to hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of people over the course of history, all for the sake of your greed and shame? Do I give humanity what they deserve without mercy to ensure they learn the full extent of the wrong they have done? giving a sense of justice to those who have died and the martyrs who have sacrificed themselves for this orchestrated scheme against me and my name and my works? Do I fill the coffers of hell with those it has so long awaited for, those whom it was made to hold within its pits of torment and suffering? Who among you believe they are worthy, that they are capable, that they are wise enough to make such a judgment upon so many for the sake of even more than those who are guilty of such things? Who among you think that they can carry the burden of such a decision and it be a true and divine decision of judgment? Do you, Satan, believe you are worthy of such burden as to decide the condemnation of all humanity for their deeds and schemes to take creation from its maker against the sacrifices of every martyr and hero who died and gave their lives for the belief in their faith in God, all orchestrated for these people's plans? Do you, son, think that you are one who can suffer the burden of responsibility for this kind of decision, not to carry the weight of man's sins but to be the one who decides their fate for what they have done? No, none of you would want that burden upon you, not just for this situation but for every other situation that ever was, is and will be, because that is what comes with such claim to be who I am. It is my responsibility as their creator to decide these things constantly. This is but a taste of what it means to truly be me. So if you think you have the ability to step up and carry this burden and there is no option for mistakes here, then by all means step up and give me a break and a well-deserved vacation. Of course, considering that none of you are me, I wouldn't be able to give such a role to any of you. For it is my responsibility, and considering who I am, it is well within my ability to do something like this without it being a burden on me, but that is the weight of your father, the weight of what your ambitions would earn you, Satan, if you ever could succeed in your agenda against me. I just wanted to make that clear for your understanding. As the creator, it is my responsibility to weigh in on these matters.
Determining the best course of action would depend on the specific nature of the truth being revealed and the context of the situation. However, here are some general suggestions. 1. Preparation. Before revealing the truth, prepare as much as possible. Understand the potential impacts and reactions. Consider seeking advice from trusted individuals who can provide perspective. 2. Clarity. Be clear about what the truth is. Misunderstandings or misconceptions can lead to unnecessary unrest. 3. Compassion and empathy. Acknowledge the potential for discomfort or distress. Show empathy and understanding for those who may struggle with their revelation. 4. Dialogue. Encourage open dialogue. Allow people to express their feelings, fears, doubts, and questions. It's important that everyone feels heard and recognized. 5. Support. Provide support to those affected. This could be in the form of counseling services, community meetings, resources for further understanding, etc. 6. Transparency. Be transparent about the process. If mistakes were made that led to this moment, acknowledge them. Honesty can help rebuild trust. 7. Respect. Respect that everyone will process the information at their own pace and in their own way. Some might readily accept the truth while others may need more time. 8. Action. If the revelation implies any wrongdoing, take appropriate action to rectify the situation. This could involve holding people accountable, implementing changes, etc. 9. Reassessment. Use this moment as an opportunity for reassessment. Encourage the community to reflect and learn from the situation. Remember, every situation is unique.